February is the first month where you see the real impact of the new 2026 payroll updates on your bank account. Germany has raised the tax-free allowance to over 12,000 euros, which is great because it protects more of your income from taxes than ever before. But at the same time, contributions for health insurance and public pension went up too, which is not great. So the question is your payslip working for you or are you working for your payslip? Let's break down every single line of your 2026 payslip so you'll know in less than 10 minutes what you can do step by step to make sure you're not leaving any money on the table. Before we dive into the different parts of your gross salary, let's speedrun the top of your payslip to see if there are any fundamental mistakes. First, check your date of birth, tax ID and social security number. These should never change. But the rest of this header is dynamic. Your tax class or Steuerklasse, for example. If you got married recently or your spouse's income changed, don't let it on the default settings, because this is the fastest way to lose hundreds of euros in taxes every single month. Next, check your confession. If it says EV or RK, you are paying church tax. That is an extra 8% or 9% of your income tax, depending on which state you live in. If you aren't religious, this is an optional tax that many expats pay for years without realizing that they can opt out. And finally, check your health insurance provider, the Krankenkasse. In 2026, the average additional contribution has jumped to 2.9%. And if your provider is charging way above that average, it might be time to shop around. But more on how to optimize your payslip later on. Now that the admin is out of the way, let's look at your total brutto. Most people just look at their base salary, the Gehalt. But there is, or at least there could be, a lot more happening here. You might see a line for your bonus or 13th month salary, that's obvious. But then it gets interesting with the non-cash benefits. Geldwerter Vorteil in German. This is where the German payroll system can get really creative, and it's actually a sign of a great employer. Look for things like your Deutschland ticket. Officially it costs 63 euros, but if your company provides it as a job ticket, you might see it listed here at a discount. You might also see a home office allowance, which is a tax-free way for your employer to help with your electricity and internet bills. Or perhaps a company car, a Wellpass subscription, or a Jobrat. There are dozens of ways to add value here, way beyond just your base pay. Important, because these are benefits and not cash, their value is added to your brutto. Tax is calculated on that higher amount, and then the benefit is taken back out before you get paid. This means you get a cheaper train ticket or a free gym membership, but your net payout might drop a few euros just to cover the tax. Talking about taxes. To make this simple, let's look at two different people. First, meet Anton, the average earner. Anton earns a little over 62,000 euros a year, which is currently the average full-time salary in Germany. And then there is Hans. Hans is our high earner, making exactly double that amount, 124,000 euros. Raise your hand if you think Hans pays double the tax because he earns double. No. Here in Germany, the math is much more interesting than that, because Germany uses a progressive income tax system, meaning the more you earn, the higher the percentage the government takes. For 2026, everyone gets a gift called the Grundfreibetrag. That means the first 12,348 euros you earn are completely tax-free. For Anton, this tax-free cushion covers a significant chunk of his income, so his effective tax rate is relatively low at around 16%. Hans has this tax-free cushion too, but because he earns so much more, most of his salary is taxed at the top rate of 42%. And he also has to pay solidarity tax, which brings his effective tax rate to 28%. So while Hans earns twice as much as Anton, he actually pays 3.5 times as much in taxes. It sounds like a lot, And it is, but Hans has also a lot more options than Anton to get taxes back. But before we talk about this, let's look at the second big deduction, Social Security. This block covers your pension, unemployment, health insurance, and long-term care. But unlike taxes, these are flat percentages of your salary, at least up to a certain amount. For Anton, the math is simple, because he pays Social Security on every single euro he earns, whether it's the 9.3% for public pension or the 1.3% for unemployment insurance. Anton is fully in the system. That's why he pays almost 22% of his gross salary in Social Security. But for Hans, things get interesting because of the Beitragsbemessungsgrenze or the contribution cap, which is where the government says, okay, you've contributed enough to the collective. The rest of your salary is free of Social Security. For the public pension and unemployment insurance, that cap is 101,400 euros. This means even though Hans earns 124,000, he only pays contributions on the first 101,000. And the rest of his income is free from these social charges. And it's the same story with health and long-term care insurance, but the cap here is lower at 69,750 euro. So while Anton pays health insurance on his full salary, Hans reaches the maximum price long ago. That's why he pays only 250 euros a month more in Social Security than Anton, despite earning twice the salary. Yes, his tax rate is quite high, but for Social Security, he doesn't even pay 15%. And because Hans is a high earner with more than 77,400 euro salary, he is also part of a special group that has a choice between public and private health insurance. He doesn't have to stay in the public system where rates, including that new 2.9% Zusatzbeitrag, keep rising every year. Since he earns above the threshold, Hans can switch to private health insurance. This is often the ultimate cheat code for high-earning expats because it can give you a better service for a lower price, especially if you're young and healthy. If you find yourself in the same position as Hans, earning over 77,400 euro and wondering why you are still paying the maximum in the public system, let's talk. You can book a free meeting with us using the link in the comments. We'll help you figure out if the private system is the right move for your specific situation. So, what's the final result for our two friends? Anton, our average earner, takes home almost 39,000 euro netto, roughly 62% of his gross. And Hans, the high earner, he takes home just over 70,000 netto. Even though he earns double, he only keeps 57% of his gross. It might sound like Hans is losing, but here is the Perfinex reality check. In Germany, that netto is your real disposable income. Your health is covered, unemployment is covered, your pension is paid. In the US or the UK, you would still have to pay for premium health insurance and private retirement from your higher netto. And Hans also has a lot of option to lower his tax rate by making smart investments. So if you want to know the top tax deductions for expats, watch this video next. Thanks for watching und bis zum nächsten Mal.